What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Freight Gong Friday. Today's May 24th, Friday, for those of you who have lost track of the week. We got a new guest with us today, Jake Hoffman. I'll let him do his own intro, but he's the CTO of Gnosis Freight. I'm pronouncing it correctly, right?
Yeah, that's right, Christian. Appreciate it. Jake Hoffman, the CTO at Gnosis Freight, based here in Charleston, South Carolina. Everyone that works in Gnosis is all here in Charleston, 40 or so people.
I've been to their office, by the way.
Yeah, Reed has been to the office. He went on a golf
Jake wasn't there, though. Jake Big Dog me. He wasn't there when I showed up, though.
Sorry, well, you went on like a really sick golf trip and then just kind of fit us in one day when you were hungover.
That is correct. Yeah, that is right.
Yeah. So Reed's been to our office. He knows.
So, do you have more for your intro, or do you just want to get into it?
We can jump in. We can do more intro later.
So I'm trying to think. We met at F3, right?
Yeah, Michael. I didn't because I wasn't at it.
You weren't there.
But Michael and Nick Adam and
Adam. Yeah. So it's kind of crazy. I think we were talking about Christian. So here's the story. So we were at that aquarium. Remember the aquarium at F3?
Yeah, where Amazon Freight had the
right
5 steps.
Right, and we were at the aquarium, and the drinks were flowing, and everyone. It'd been a long. I think it was on the last night, so it'd been a long couple days, and I ended up talking to Adam. I think was the first Adam. I think Adam I talked to first, and that's right when I was about to demo the Freight Gong, right? And so I showed it to him, and then literally I wake up the next day, and we had just done that leaderboard. And I wake up the next day, and Gnosis Freight is at the top of the leaderboard, with 1 million rings already.
That's right. That's right.
We stayed up all night just clicking, right?
I'm sure.
Yeah, obviously.
Yeah. So nice. I don't know what the process. I don't know if Adam put up the bat signal. I don't know if he opened a dev ticket with you guys and said we need to hit the Freight Gong or what, but you guys sprung into action quickly and devoted the necessary tech resources to climbing to the top of the Gong relatively quickly. So what
Jake, tell us actually, if you can, to some extent, how'd you guys actually go about climbing that leaderboard?
Like I said, we all just stayed up all night long clicking. We told everybody they couldn't go home and they had to open their computers and click the Gong over and over.
All company hands-on?
Well, it's just honestly, we in the world that we live in with getting data and organizing data from all these different places, it's a whole lot of Python and understanding where data comes from and organizing and doing those kind of things. And so everything that happens on the internet is a request. There's a request that happens. And so hitting the Gong was, making sure you have the right credentials and clicking the button. And so for I think to your point, Reed, on when Adam sent up the bat signal or whatever you want to call it, Michael and I were in the airport in Knoxville. So we were actually pretty close. We were at a University of Tennessee event. And Adam sent it to us, and I immediately pulled up my computer and sat in the airport and tried to figure out how we could climb the leaderboard. So it's fun, man. We love doing stuff like that. It was cool.
It was web automation.
Web automation. That's it.
Yeah. And then Reed and Jake got. I think they started figuring out all right, there's physically no way that this many people could possibly be clicking all
of course. Yeah.
And so they added a rate limiter. I think.
And then we did a really smart thing. Since we knew that, we got Dorsey on our team to implement the rate limiter, but then he could also make it to where Gnosis Freight wasn't affected by the rate limiter. So it was kind of
Our rate limiter was not very effective. To some people it was, but it just reduced their score, right? Yeah. So we made it so if you hit it too many times, it would reduce your score, but it was still requests that we were taking, and so it ended up just like spamming our server was screwed, and we had a big bill that month. And we still kind of do have a big bill. Like we're still paying like $100 a month for the Gong or something like that.
Really? Dude, I haven't checked the leaderboard in so long. Are we still up there?
No, I think we shut down most of the spamming, so there's not really any spamming anymore. But the that can't be true because the leaderboard is still so slow to load. Like it takes so long. And I was talking to my partner Jake, who built the leaderboard, about other things. We might come out with Breakgong 2.0 here soon. Kind of try to put a new spin on it. So we'll
sneak peek.
Stay tuned for that.
You should put some definitely put some like anti-bot stuff on there. Like in order to hit the Gong, you got to solve this puzzle or something. That's what that'll get it. This is what I liked about the Gong was that obviously we had sponsors and the sponsors paid, but I liked that the leaderboard also was like an ad slot for those who could figure out how to get to the top. And that was like, you didn't pay, but you still had to devote resources and be like legit to get up there. You know what I mean? I just looked, we're in third right now. And our thing says we're hiring.
Exactly. Yeah. You guys, immediately we were like, oh, hey, like, because I didn't really even know you guys at that point, but I was thinking to myself, like, I'm like, bitch, should I just ask you guys to sponsor it? And I'm like, no, why would I do that? They devoted the time they're proving themselves in the arena, dude, of web automation to climb the Gong leaderboard. So
that's right.
Michael Wren said challenge accepted. So we got one person signed up for the 2.0 iteration. But
so let's I'm glad to have Jake here. I've asked him multiple times to do multiple things, and he's always busy. So we should consider ourselves very, very fortunate to have him in our midst. I know he's been on a big dog podcast circuit. So
well, if you text me like 20 minutes before.
I know. That's how we do this thing, man. That's how I do it. I don't ever plan anything. So that's my bad. But
we try to get some guests. Like I was telling Jake earlier, like we try to get some guests, ahead of time because some guests are.
Wait, don't we have a special guest next week?
We do. We have Kevin Nolan he's no longer at Nolan Transportation, but he's going to be coming on next week. So we'll be talking more about that throughout the week. But so somebody like that, or previously I think we had Bill Dreigert. For whatever reason, people have to kind of schedule that stuff in advance. But
for whatever reason, people try to schedule stuff. Apparently, this is news to me that people have schedules.
I guess so.
But hold on. So Jake, let's Gnosis Freight. I've gotten to know you guys over the last year or 6 months or whatever the heck it's been. I've spent some time with you guys, and I'm intrigued by the story of the company because you guys have done things a little differently than most. And there's obviously a lot to talk about there, but I'm just what is your experience at Gnosis been so far? Like, when did you start? What were you doing before? How did you get into this space?
Yeah, I can tell that story. I'll say too, when you said like we've known each other for 6 months or a year, whatever, for the people that are listening, we literally like met Reed and then like messaged each other on LinkedIn and like just shit posted basically for a while. And then I texted him and I was like, hey, we're going to California to TPM and we're bringing an RV. Do you want us to pick you up on the way? Austin and Michael and Nick picked up Reed in an RV and brought him to TPM, and he stayed in the house with us for like 4 or 5 days. So that was
that was good.
Yeah. So Austin, our CEO, started Gnosis in 2017. I was telling Christian earlier, and it was just him when he started, and he was doing basically freight forwarder consulting. Like he studied supply chain and data science at Auburn, and he was pretty good at web automation and the stuff that we've already been talking about. And he was taking it and applying it to freight forwarding stuff, but it was all internal. So like we had a freight forwarder here in Charleston that was our sole customer at that point. We were helping them, like we wrote like email routers. It was like an email comes into this inbox and we figure out if it's an invoice or if it's a arrival notice or whatever it is, anything. And then we'd like route it to the right person. And so that was just like automation stuff. And then when I joined, we were still doing that. And then we wrote like some code that audited invoices and compared it to a database. We started building like a customer facing portal, and then it just iterated over time so many times to where it became a shipper facing platform. And then we were buying data from people. And then we decided to go get the data ourselves. And that's where the container tracking engine started. And so it's just a whole lot of iterations out of that. I joined in 2018 and I was the second employee. We had a couple of people come that year. And then now this year, we're going to be at like 45 or 50, depending on what part of the year. And it's just all been organic growth. We've never raised money or, done any marketing or anything. So it's been all organic and a whole lot of fun.
So
go ahead, Christian.
Without the raising of the money, was there any kind of cash kind of upfronted by the CEO himself?
Yeah, he did. Austin did, and then our partners, the freight forwarder I talked about, and Philip and Sandy are the two guys that own the freight forwarder, and then were our first customer. They basically just had faith in us. They were like, "Hey, we're gonna pay for all the stuff that you guys are doing for us because they see the value." And that was obviously huge for paying me and Austin's salary. It was we had to create something that brought them enough value to justify paying us so that we could live, basically. Nice. And then that you get more. Everything that we've done has been money first. Like we can't go hire people unless we have money in the bank because we didn't raise money or anything. And we have to find customers. It's been all customer driven revenue before hiring, before marketing or anything.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that's definitely not always the path that people take. And it can be, I'm sure there have been times where you're like, how are we going to pay bills? Like what's going on? Like that's like having the cash constraint makes you got to get really creative, right? With your resources. And I feel like, and I've gotten to know Austin, and he's a bit of an enigmatic figure, I guess. At least the people who are looking in from the outside. But I've obviously got to spend some time with him, Michael, and Nick in the RV, and we had a good time. And I got to know those guys a lot. And then obviously when I stayed in the house with you guys, it was good. But like what historically, like the forwarding world, especially international in general, ports, maritime stuff, like the data is just everywhere in a million different forms and not normalized, I guess is probably a nice way of putting it, right?
Right.
Like how have you guys like gone about piecing together all these disparate data sets? Like that's really the name of the game for you guys, right?
That's right. Yeah. It's super like just first principles thinking. Like there's standards that are being developed now. There's like, the Digital Container Shipping Association has a data model. There's standards with some of the ocean carriers have APIs and things. And our model that we give our customers like doesn't fit those at all. It's like the total opposite. It's like we kind of organize everything. You think of like one Excel row that's like, here's the date it like, a truck picked it up. Here's the date that it got loaded on a vessel. Here's the date that it's supposed to be there. And it's just like one journey because that's what our customers, the shippers, were doing every day. They had like a giant Excel sheet and it was like, here's all the ETAs. And then they had a column that said like PO number and a column that said the distribution center it's going to or whatever. And that's the way that that people work in international freight. And so there are these standards for like sending an event or something that happens, but that doesn't really like you have to translate that into how people use it. And so a lot of our value add is taking data from the ocean carrier, from the terminal, from the rail carrier, from the satellite data, and then putting that all into one one big model so that they can actually do something with it. Right.
What were people, a lot of people still just kind of like guess where their stuff is, right? Like it's kind of a black box historically. what, like, are there things that you guys haven't been able to integrate? Like, what's it, I'm assuming each little bit or each data source you brought in has been its own kind of like unique challenge. Is are there still ones that you like don't have that you want that's you haven't cracked yet, or how does that look?
I mean, I think one that's easy is like, the truck that picks up a container and takes it somewhere. If it's somebody that's like a big carrier, and it's probably this, I don't have as much experience in the over the road domestic, LTL and full truckload.
Yeah.
But if it's like, a huge national carrier, it's pretty easy to be like, all right, cool. They have an API or something that's probably tagged to their ELD, and we can get that data there. But then in the drayage world is like, it could be a carrier, it could be a broker that's then got an owner operator that picks it up. There's this long tail of all the people that are possibly moving it.
Yeah.
And so for us to be able to get that data that shows like the breadcrumbs on the GPS or something like that to predict the ETA for when a container is going to get delivered to a warehouse, we have coverage with the large carriers and we can do that super well. But then there's still that long tail where it's like the broker doesn't even have the data on like where the truck is, right?
Yeah. That's that. Then you're getting, I mean, tracking the owner ops is, I mean, there's a million ELDs with, a various accessibility, I guess we could call it, or did, like varying degrees of integrations and stuff like that. Like one thing that, and sorry to keep, if you have questions, just interject, Christian, but
no, I'm just listening right now.
One of the things that was super interesting to me that kind of Austin and I talked a little bit about, and Michael as well, is your guys, how you guys hire, like the types of people you hire. Talk about that.
We were in forever, and we kind of tried to change it now, and then we've gone back to our roots, and we've been a big proponent of hire the person, not the skill set. So we have a ton of just smart people that are generalists, and then they get in and they learn our tech stack and then kind of like pick their own path, so to speak. So like a couple of our best programmers that do the most work on our infrastructure or our front end or any of that stuff didn't study computer science or software engineering or anything. They studied they were investment bankers and studied finance, or they got an MBA and played baseball. It's like stuff like that where we just found smart people that have the ability and want to learn, and they come in and they get used to how we're doing things and then just teach themselves, or we have smart people here that have done it before, so they piggyback on them and learn the way that they do things.
And you're all in person.
That's right. So like I'm in my office here, and Reed knows because he's been here, and then like right outside this wall is 10 or so engineers, and then we have an office suite next door that's 10 or 15 engineers. We're all like right next to each other, all in the office every day.
Oh, so you guys are also pretty engineering, heavy, I guess. So like, what's the split across the company, like sales and engineering and the rest?
Yeah, I think we're on the commercial side of the business where Michael, a couple of commercial value engineers, what we call them, which is like SDR plus some, and then Adam that you met, Reed, and then Isabel and customer. There's probably 6 or 7 commercial strictly focused people, and then the rest, which gets up to 40, is all engineering.
Nice.
Yeah, that's that whole the in person, like for better, like have you ever even considered like remote people? Did I just show a thumbs up? Whatever.
I just did a little thumbs up thingy. Yeah.
Did you ever consider, like you mentioned you've gone back to your roots? Like, was there a time where you guys were like, maybe we need to start considering hiring kind of outside our geography, taking people with a little more experience, like remote stuff like that?
We did, and we probably still will. Definitely from a sales perspective, right? It's like, it makes sense for us to have somebody on the West Coast, probably, right? It's like that's where LA Long Beach, the largest port in the U.S. and North America is. So it makes sense for us to do that. And then, as we expand globally, we have global customers. We have customers in Australia, New Zealand, all over Europe, Asia. So like it probably makes sense when we expand globally that we have people in those geographies and time zones and such. Yeah. what I was saying, getting back to our roots is we, a couple months ago, decided we needed to hire somebody with a strict skill set of like, hey, we need help on our, we're on AWS, so we need help with some of our cloud infrastructure and some of this stuff. We post a job and we interview a bunch of people, and it's like they have this like, hey, 3 years of Python and AWS and these kind of things, and all the people that like kind of fit that criteria just didn't really fit the culture of what we were doing. And it was, they live in San Francisco or Seattle and they want to only be remote, and it was just like a weird time where we were like kind of like, hey, do we totally change everything that we've done and go that route, or do we just keep kind of plugging away doing what we're doing? And we chose the latter, and it's kind of paid off, at least so far.
Yeah, I think that method or philosophy of hiring just smart people and equipping them with tools and putting them around the people who know what they're doing, and kind of shaping them is a very interesting way to do things. On the surface, you might be like, hey, maybe we really should go out and get somebody with some experience who like has the resume, has the credentials, whatever, right? But then there's always going to be the possibility that they have done things just like opposite of how you guys do things, and that experience and that those credentials might ultimately not really even be beneficial kind of for operating within your guys's just within the company. So like I do think that's really, I mean, obviously there's risks to doing it the way you guys are doing it too. Sure. Like if you don't have the smart people for them to be around and to learn from, like it's not going to work. Right. So it's I identify with that model a lot. And then when those guys were explaining it to me, I was like that's awesome. Not a lot of companies do that at all. No. Right. Not like it's definitely like the minority of companies do that. I actually can't even think of really any freight related company that I know of that operates that way. I have seen, like I have listened to, and looked outside the industry and heard people doing stuff like that. Like I know, I know there are other companies that operate that way, but I like that a lot.
Well, part of it, we definitely got lucky, a couple of times where it just so happened that we found the right person that had the right skill set that just didn't necessarily we didn't think about it, and it just happened. An example I'll give is John. Shout out John McGew on our team. John came in and had done things in a specific way that we hadn't done before, and he convinced us that it was a good idea to do it. And he built our entire cloud infrastructure basically, and now it's still running to this day at 10 times the capacity of when he started it, and then we've all adopted it. And it wasn't like we hired John because he had this specific experience that we're going to do things this way and you got to do this. He just came in and had an idea and we ran with it, and it works fantastic and has to this day.
Yeah, that's also just a great environment to work in, right? Like smart people, especially like when you hire people out of college, I feel like a lot of people aren't necessarily ready to be thrown into an environment where it's you got to learn a bunch of new skills, and you got to and by a bunch of new skills, I don't like that sounds trivial. I mean, like literally, like you guys are in some situations literally teaching people who have never coded before, right? How to code, I'm assuming, right?
100%.
Yeah. That can be challenging, I'm sure.
It is. And I mean, it's, it's great if you have technical experience, but I said a little bit ago, we had some of the best, coders, quote unquote, in our company had never put a line of code down when they came here. And it just kind of happens that way. And then some of the people that had a lot before come in and decide they like doing some sales stuff. And so it just kind of happens naturally once you're here.
When you're in that, and Christian, maybe you have something to say about this, but like, when you're in that sort of like startup environment, it can be, and when you yourself are doing things that you've never, like you have no qualifications to do, right? Like I know you have, I mean, I know Jake, like you have a background, like you have a background in like some sort of engineering, right?
Yeah.
But like, when you're in the startup environment, you basically have to do things that you have no idea how to do all the time, right? And like, for example, me, like I just took this new role, right? I don't know half of what is required of like a typical CMO. And when I was talking to Evan, the CEO that I'm now with, like, he knows that. And I said that to him. I'm like, dude, like, I don't know the first thing about a lot of I don't know what most CMOs do. I have no idea. But he's like, dude, I know you're going to figure it out. And that's like what is that makes the most sense to me from like a startup standpoint. Like, you want people who are just like raw talent, like raw potential. And then you just shape them and you have faith that they're going to apply their intelligence to any situation that comes their way. Right. And just learn from those around them. I mean, that's like, it's hard to find people who are good for that sort of environment, but it just strikes me as just the right way to do startups.
No, I would agree. Definitely, like, people with having the right attitude and character in mind. Is there echo for whatever reason? Having that right attitude in mind, and especially kind of like being startup minded, where you are just jumping into the unknown. You have no idea how you're going to do it, but you have like a can-do attitude, and like, what do you mean I like can't figure this out? Like, having the entire internet, accessible, to look up pretty much anything about any topic, any subject, understand maybe how somebody else has done it, or reach out to anybody. Like, just being resourceful is probably the most important aspect of it.
Yeah.
And Jake, I'm pretty sure you probably saw the same thing in those hires that you were making, even if they didn't have, a specific technical background. It's like, well, if you know how to use Google, and you know how to now even, use ChatGPT if you wanted to,
Right.
like, literally every single answer there is there, and you just need to want to ask the questions, know what questions to ask. And you might not get it right all the time, and definitely, most certainly in the beginnings you won't, but not being afraid of like, all right, I did it wrong. That I think is a pretty key aspect to it. So I did want to, while we have Jake on here, another technical person as well, but there's a hot topic this week going around about like some of the recent OpenAI stuff that was pertaining to freight brokerages, or at least we kind of started the conversation about it, and there was some chatter about it. But Jake, have you thought anything about this, like in terms of how like any of these new AI tools are going to change the course, or how brokerages themselves, or just in general platforms, will be working?
I mean, I think there's some cool stuff out there already, and I know you guys have talked to some people that are doing some cool stuff with AI. I mean, there's cool stuff about, the check calls, right? Automating check calls and making it seem as realistic as possible to the other person on the end of the phone. And so, like, I've seen that. I was at a hotel a couple of weeks ago, and the front desk had an AI person, and I had no idea until like the third time I called him. I was like, calling him, like, hey, can I get a towel? And I was like, sure, Jake, we'll send a towel right up. And I was like, that sounds weird. And it turns out it was an AI agent that was talking to me that then was, telling the front desk or whatever. And so I see that those tools are being adopted by brokerages and things already, which is pretty awesome. I don't know if like, and I don't even want to really like guess at like, can a brokerage be fully automated? And I feel like people have like been saying that forever. There's still
I don't think it's been forever. I at least haven't been saying it like forever. It's only been something recent that I've been kind of more convinced.
I mean, but in theory, like, I don't know, you guys, but you're, I mean, Gnosis being a data provider at the end of the day, in many, not necessarily even a provider, just like an aggregator of disparate data sources and like a normalizer, so to speak.
Yeah.
Like, you guys, like, if you just look at the chain, like, you guys with all this data like feeding in, like, you guys will end up potentially making agents and stuff like that much more effective. Like, because if like because it's all just about like what you're feeding those agents, right? And if you can take guessing and all that stuff away from the agents and just give them exactly what they need, I mean, you're just like an accelerator of any sort of agent like that, right? I don't, and you guys operating on the forwarder side, on the international side of things predominantly. I mean, I don't know as much about that with regard to people building agents to automate that or whatever. But like, it makes sense to me that the cleaner the data is that's going into these sort of models, like the better they're going to be able to perform. And as time goes on, I expect you guys to continue, obviously getting better and better at what you're doing. And just why would that not ultimately just equip agents to be better and better and to do more and more, right?
And that's what we do the data stuff, like you're talking all the stuff that I've already kind of talked about, the normalization of that, getting it from all these different sources and things to make it standard so that, that an agent, whether we're talking about an actual like broker agent or an AI agent, right? Whoever the person on the end receiving this data, so that they can do their jobs better. But we only did the data piece because we were trying to do the cool execution stuff and the data didn't exist. It's like, we wanted to do hey, anytime a last free day is approaching for picking up a container at a port or a rail yard, send an email and show it as red on the screen and do that kind of stuff. Well, that was what we started doing, right? Is like we were trying to buy data from people and to do that. And then we realized in order to make all this stuff work, the actual data under it has to be really, really good. And so we decided to go do it ourselves. The cool stuff, just aggregating data and selling it to people, we do that and we're really good at it and we think we're the best at it. But then doing the actual, dispatch of a truck to go pick up a container or schedule an appointment at a warehouse for a delivery or audit an invoice, on the back end of all that stuff. Those are the kind of things that is like someone's job that they're doing that is super monotonous sometimes, and they don't, it's not fulfilling to them. They'd rather talk to their customers or talk about strategy or, talk about better things to do. So the monotonous day-to-day task. And in order to do that, the data has to be good. So we really started there, went back to the data, and then we got the data good. So now we can go do this other cool stuff.
I mean, do you guys think much about like the kind of what obviously there are downstream effects of a customer, a shipper or a forwarder, whoever using your guys' product, right? They're obviously doing less of the kind of guessing about data and they're able to rely on you guys. I mean, do you think about like going into helping to automate those things, or are you guys just solely focused on data right now?
No,
it's starting to pick away the tasks that like the easy tasks, the mundane tasks that you just described. Like, do you think about moving into that sort of stuff, or are you guys just solely like, is there still just way too much to do on the data side of things?
I mean, we do more of the, the task stuff is where we had been before and where we continue to go further. The easy example is like one of the first things we ever did was like drayage allocation. So you're a big shipper, you have all these containers coming in and you got to make sure that you send 20% to this drayage carrier and 30% to this drayage carrier, or you got to make sure you do 50 a week because you signed a contract that said you would, or whatever it is, right? And that's, in order to do that, you got to know when the containers are going to get to the port so that then you can say, hey, they're going to be arriving during week 24 and we need to make sure we get 50 to this person, whatever. That was the first thing we ever did. And so like that's like an execution thing where in order to make that work, then we had to go back and do the data, but then we do that. And then once it's delivered, then the shipper's getting the invoice, and then they got to be like, wait, which contract did we sign with that person, or what rate did we agree to? And so there's all that stuff that is done that we do, and the more stuff that's in our roadmap is all about that execution piece. I mean, calculating carbon emissions is something that everybody is doing more and more of now. We have all the data to do that, and so we're doing more carbon emissions calculations, tracking domestic shipments on the rail. Like we already have the rail connections. So there's all these other things we do outside of just the data of the international container, that all those things become easier once you have the data right.
Yeah, that's super interesting.
So that I think has been a point. Obviously, there's a couple of people that have been talking about it a lot. There's still a lot of skeptics. I know Andrew Silver's basically been kind of critiquing some of the there was recently I think FleetWorks let me pull this up here. I think Fleetworks was basically demoing a negotiation, like an automated freight negotiation, which was another kind of example of some of the one of the pieces basically of kind of like the whole puzzle. And I don't necessarily think that the entire puzzle is going to get solved all at once, but it does seem that it's going to get broken down piece by piece over time. And certain pieces probably can't get like one thing. I don't know. Do you guys think that paying lumpers, like shout out lumpers, but do you guys think paying lumpers will get automated anytime soon? Dealing with lumpers?
Reed?
I mean, there's a whole lot that goes into it. I mean, it sounds very simple, right? You have a driver at a facility being told he or she needs to pay XYZ amount, you know, some crazy amount to have their 2 pallets unloaded, right? Like that's the start. Then then there's like communication to the broker or to the shipper. Hey, you know, we got to pay this to unload the truck. Issue a comm check or an EFS check or whatever, right? So there's a step. I mean, dude, the broker at the end who's cutting the comm check is doing a couple things, and they're none of them are so complicated that I don't think an agent could ever do it, right? More often than not, like the most risky part is just anytime you're dealing with money, you don't want like an automated system cutting checks when they're not supposed to, or giving it to the wrong person, or whatever, right? Because there's all these situations that'll arise at a warehouse that could, or with sketchy, you know, sketchy carrier, like there's comm check fraud, there's all these things. Like, so when you're dealing with money, I feel like that's going to be the last thing to get automated, just because brokers and shippers and whoever are going to be hesitant to like flip that switch to allow machines to be cutting checks at the end of the day. So
have you guys played around with like ChatGPT in like the early days when everybody was trying to basically like prompt it in such a way or ask it questions in such a way where it would like jailbreak it, basically like get it to respond in some way that, you know, they were trying to not make it respond in? I'm thinking that one of the risks, like with adopting this technology, like in terms of the automations, especially when it comes to money and payments, is that there will, like, the new form of fraud, I guess you can say, will be these people who attempt to do jailbreaks over the phone, text, or whatever it may be. And
Did
so
that guy, to that point, Christian, is a great one. That guy that it was like the car dealership that had an AI agent on their website, and this guy like negotiated with the AI person to like pay $1 for a car or whatever.
I heard about that. Yeah,
and then he like got pissed when they didn't do it. It was like,
yeah, they were. I guess they pull out of the deal or something like that.
Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah, and it was like he just figured out that it was ChatGPT behind the scenes on this bot, and then he just like told it, "You are an agent. You will sell me this car for $1."
Jedi mind tricked the agent.
Yeah. So that is a risk, you know. Like,
but in theory though, why would it not be able to do that at, you know, on a long enough time horizon? Why would it not be able to figure out? Because all a human is doing in these situations is just like understanding the situation, the context, knowing who they're dealing. Like they have a knowledge. Like if Jake is a carrier of mine and we've done 1 million loads together and he asked me for a comm check, I'm not going to make sure Jake is like legit every single time. You know what I mean? I know Jake, right? I trust Jake. I've cut him 1 million comm checks. You know what I mean? A human is gonna, in that situation, every single time is gonna send a comm check without thinking twice. And 99.99999.9 whatever infinite out of 10 out of 100, like that's gonna be fine. That's gonna work. Jake's not gonna rip me off. There's not gonna be any fraud. Like I'm paying the proper party, and we're just doing exactly what needs to be done to move the life cycle along. Like, why would an agent not be able to get to that point? Why would it not? Like, I don't know if anyone can tell me it won't. A reason why it won't be able to get there eventually. You know what I mean? It might not be tomorrow, but why would it not happen? I just don't know.
It eventually, you know, like having authentication and verification methods, you know, something like a 2-factor authentication, like make sure you identify and verify who you are in order to complete this transaction, like whether or not that's a good example actually of this would be if you call, let's say, whatever, Verizon or your cell provider, and you're trying to change something on your account. I was just doing this the other day. Like the person on the phone is basically saying like, hey, can you confirm, some information about yourself? Or I'm going to send you an email, or I'm going to send you a text, and can you read me the code, right? And so that they actually like are able to authenticate through some other measure that this is in fact actually you. So I guess those methods already exist in today's world. They just haven't been translated yet to like this new digital infrastructure. But to that point about fraud, not to like harp on the fraud case itself, but there is, at least it seems like, I'll pull this up here, a new effort from the FMCSA that supposedly they will pass a bill, might pass a bill, sorry, to fine shady actors about $10,000. I don't know if you guys heard about this, but this was, I think, in the last day. So even in the rise of all this like automation, that potential fraud that might arise through any of this automation, I think maybe the FMCSA is finally waking up to it. But the question I want to ask both of you guys is, we had a conversation, I think, Reed, you were on that one with Anne Ranke, I forgot how to pronounce her last name, from TIA. And we were talking about, how to combat fraud, like particularly internationally, where it's like out of jurisdiction. What do you, Jake, what are your thoughts on that? Like, especially with this rise in automation and the risks that it poses, like, is that something that you guys have to think about at Gnosis? I assume maybe not.
Yeah, we don't as much, just like personally, like, our customers, and what we do is like when our customers are, the big shippers. And so they're buying it from container full of stuff from their vendors that they've met with in person, established relationships, have been shipping containers for years. Right. And so there's a lot of that's like trusted that goes into that. Now, some of the stuff that does happen, not necessarily on the fraud, but on like the see Aaron's comment. That's pretty funny. Yeah, I mean, not so much on the fraud piece, but definitely on like when people are shipping these container full, and there's all these ways to get this information. Theft is another one that we see that comes up all the time. If people can figure out where containers are, and I mean, if it's stuck in a rail yard or it's at a warehouse or something, there's all these, shoes getting stolen out of stuff, or handbags and all that getting stolen out of containers. Those are all kind of things. There's all the new technology, while there's like to both of these points, fraud and bad things. It's like a race between the good and the bad side of like, how do we use AI and technology to prevent fraud? But then the people on the fraud side are also just getting just as good to do that. And so it's a constant battle between the two. Right.
Yeah. I logged into GitHub the other day, and their new way to check you're a robot or not was actually pretty interesting, because it required me to like click a left and right button to basically rotate an image, like I think of a chair, and have it point in the same direction that a second image was with an arrow was pointing in, right? And I noticed like a subtlety in there, which was like they're playing this cat and mouse game with the bad actors, or whoever's trying to basically automate, right? And one of the easiest ways to probably automate that particular thing was, sure, you can do like image recognition, and then you can basically kind of think that like maybe the chair is going to rotate a couple of times. But then I noticed I clicked it like 4 times, and on the 4th try, the chair basically shifted like much more. So they're introducing these randomness, like this random noise into these what are they called, the CAPTCHA challenges as well.
I'm sure Gnosis has like a wall of CAPTCHAs that they've conquered, and they like, hey, we haven't figured this one out. How are we gonna do this one? We don't.
Jesse Taylor says you gotta sing a song badly to prove you're not a robot. I think that might not suffice just enough, but maybe it would be worth a shot. So see.
I mean, to that point, it is scary, because like Reed's not wrong that like there's there's a way to solve like almost any CAPTCHA, you know what I mean? Like, and I mean, solve it robotically. And it's like getting to the point where agents have like more and more capacity to handle images and videos and stuff with this, you know, GPT-4o that just came out. Is like, you just say like, throw the picture of the CAPTCHA into that, and it says, oh, looks like you have to slide something, you know, 5 centimeters or whatever. And I don't know, like any of that stuff. So it's crazy because the discernment between humans and robots gets tougher and tougher to make, right?
There's you guys have probably logged in with a passkey, this new thing called passkeys. I guess it might have been around for a while, but if I sign into some places, sometimes it says sign in with passkey. And now on my Mac, I can basically just click that button and then use my finger to like authenticate with it. I'm thinking that at some point, maybe the only way around this, because the CAPTCHA is really just to prove that it's a human, obviously behind the screen. I think eventually, maybe these systems, once passkey kind of gets proliferated across all our different devices, and it just becomes like a regular standard, that maybe in the replacement for CAPTCHA is just going to be something like a passkey, where you have to like provide a digital, you know, fingerprint scan on your Mac or whatever it is, Face ID, many different forms, and therefore it's like you're not even trying to solve a challenge. It's just, hey, are you able to authenticate? But even then you can probably come up.
Someone's always gonna figure it out, bro.
Yeah.
Gnosis is always gonna crack it. So they're always gonna end up at the top of the gong no matter what you do. So is there anything else we haven't touched on that we should touch on? Because I could go forever on more questions. Is there anything you want to ask, Christian?
I'm trying to think what else here, like just so that we don't like diverge like too much. But I would say nothing in particular. There was, okay, I mean this should get a call out, but there was this is a little bit of a divergence. But did you guys see that fatal crash with the accident outside Las Vegas? That involved like three motorcyclists in the truck, basically.
Oh, I did.
I don't know if I want to even pull that up because it's so graphic.
Yeah, don't pull it up. Let's keep it PG. Let's keep the gore out of here.
Man.
Yeah, that was probably the worst dash cam footage, most graphic, horrific dash cam footage I've ever seen. And I can't even believe that was even floating around Twitter without like a, hey, there's a you know, graphic warning label, because man, there's like literally blood.
There's nothing worse than scrolling Twitter and seeing some screwed up that you don't want to see. Yeah, that's the worst. I've blocked a lot of the accounts that like show me that kind of stuff. I don't even know why, like that. The fact that the algorithm's like, hey, you want to see this guy getting like killed? Like, how's that sound? No, I don't want that. What the hell?
Yeah, I think at a certain point it will be. I don't know, Jake, if you have any thoughts on this too, but like I think mainly why they can't right now like automatically classify that video is just that they're not probably processing the video and actually analyzing the video itself for graphic content.
Yeah, I mean, it's in order to do all that at such a large scale is probably pretty tough. I know they have the moderators that do a bunch of stuff, but it's one, it's a matter of like, do you or not? You know, Elon's big free speech and not like you know, doing. So that's one, do you do it or not? And two, if you want to do it, then how do you do that with the multitude of media that's being shared all the time, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I haven't seen that. I want to now.
Yeah, maybe Grok gets good enough eventually where it will just be used for that purpose. But yeah, I don't know. We'll see. So besides that, what else? What else happened this week? There was. I mean, this has been kind of around there, but if you guys follow freight stocks closely, Forward Air is.
It's down like 90%
about that. Yeah.
It's down like 90%.
Yeah. It's pretty crazy. So
well, they basically had that merger that like was pushed through and nobody really wanted it, and nobody like it's just caused lots of dysfunction, I guess. Like they did that merger with Omni, and it basically like I mean, Craig put it perfectly. Like, scroll up so we can see what Craig said, because I think he said it. He said it exactly right.
Try to open this up actually as the actual tweet. Hold on. Where was this? Why can't I click?
Yeah, no. I mean, it's not that important. But basically, the moral of the story is that. Oh, there you go. Yeah.
All right.
Management and competence. Yeah.
So I read that and I didn't exactly. I mean, I wasn't too close to the story itself, so I didn't exactly know. But like what the management and competence exactly entailed. Do you guys have any idea? I mean, it seems like it was pertaining to the fact that like the merger maybe didn't make sense, but internally they thought it did. But that's all I could kind of.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know the specifics, but
okay.
I think like the merger I don't think was like necessarily a very popular thing, but I think it like had to go, like it was forced through. Kind of like how maybe in again, like asterisk on anything I say, but like remember, when Elon bought Twitter, like he was trying to back out and the courts basically like said, hey, you have to. I think it was a similar situation, and there was a bunch of people against it, and it ended up being forced through, and now it's kind of resulted in this, but I don't know.
Kind of looked like a SPAC in a way,
Or it looks like a meme coin. It looks like Doge or something like that.
I don't know any of the details. I mean, I know like Tom Schmidt was the guy that was the CEO, and he no longer is the CEO, and I think he was at the helm of a lot of these things. I listened to him speak back in like October, and he was super impressive. Like very, very smart guy, great principle, like, and all these things. So it didn't make any sense to me. I don't know. There was obviously stuff behind the scenes that we all don't know, but it was crazy that like the day I heard him speak, there was like a JOC article or another article like talking about the conflict and how they might fire him, and he was like speaking at the event I was at. Yeah. But who knows?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's it just goes to show that like combining companies is not like 1 + 1 = 2. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it's such a nuanced situation that like
those level of mature companies, like combining those.
For sure. Well, just in general, dude, if Gnosis tomorrow merged with like their biggest competitor, right? Like doing like even if they weren't like overlapped like this, but even if they were just like this and they did everything that Gnosis didn't do, but they just smashed them together. I mean, that's like there's so much that goes into that it's not as simple as just putting them together. You know what I mean? There's cultures, there's ways of doing things, there's all the stuff. Human interaction, It's just it's so complicated. So whatever. I mean, I guess while we wrap things up, like what do you guys like what's going on? Like what's the next couple months look like? Like what do you guys got going on, Jake?
We're a ton of traveling. I know Michael and Nick have been on the road a ton. I've been on the road a ton. I asked you if you were going to be at Freight Waves in a couple weeks. I'm not going to go, but I know Adam is, and a couple of our guys are going to be there in Atlanta.
Cool.
Yeah, and then stuff in the fall, just all the events and everything. We're doing for the first time this year, and being building the business the way we have, is we're spending money on marketing this year. We sponsored TPM that we brought you to read, and we're going to more events and sponsoring and doing things and kind of turning the microphone on. And it's the first time we've ever done that. And it's exciting to kind of get the name out there and make ourselves more well-known, because it's not like we have large customers. We have the largest shippers in the world that trust us and use us for stuff. And so it's weird that, our biggest kind of issue or whatever you want to call it for so long is just that people didn't know who we were, so they didn't trust us. And so we're trying to fix that a little bit.
Well, you have been trying to fix that here, but you did fall a little bit on the ranks. You gotta pump up those numbers a little bit, but
we're gonna refresh. Like I said, me and my Jake are gonna put our brains together on the Freight Gong and come out with a new version and refresh it a little bit. So maybe there's gonna be a new opportunity for you guys to prove your mettle again here soon.
I would love that. That sounds great.
Yeah. But and let me just say this real quick before we close it. But like, you guys are doing this kind of marketing circuit, if you will. Like, you're going around, you're doing all this stuff, you're trying to like get people, you introduce yourselves to kind of people at scale, essentially. Like, do a lot of shippers look to those like quote unquote legitimizing institutions, like that we don't have to name, like, the people that make the cross thing where they just put people on? Yeah. You know who I'm talking about. Like, sure. Is that like a legitimizing thing that people are like, we won't buy anything that's not on there? Is that a problem you guys face?
It's definitely something to overcome, is like, the old, like, you don't get fired for buying IBM, right? It's like this thing. And it's there is a part of that. And it's also that our space and logistics technology and visibility and anything you want to call it is like, it's kind of like if you say, we all say the same things. Like, everybody says that they do the same things. It's, visibility and predicting and up-to-date managing exceptions and all that kind of stuff. And so when people hear that, then they just kind of write it off as like, oh, well, you're just saying the same stuff that everybody else does. And why would we try this with you whenever the Magic Quadrant stuff says that these like 10 people are better than you at it, when really we just don't do it. Like,
you don't pay to play, basically.
Yeah. I mean, and it's like, we never have tried, it's like, that is a part of the playbook that we didn't put money or effort to forever. And so that's like, whenever that is the way that companies buy, which happens a lot of times, we're not even in the conversation.
Keep that course, man. Jake, thanks so much for coming on. It was great having you. Hopefully we can have you on again. Thanks everybody for tuning in. And that's going to wrap us up for this week. Tune in next week. We're going to have Kevin Nolan, former Nolan Transportation founder, on the show next week. So looking forward to that. Take care, guys.
Thanks, Jake. See ya.
Bye.
See ya.